Blessings, gratitude, blooming family. I'm back again for another tuning inward session. Today we'll be covering our inner child, tuning inward to our inner child. And before we dive into that, I just want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for supporting me, for supporting Gratitude Blooming, for being present in this September pollination. It is such an honor to serve community and to build relationship with nature and with continue building relationship with this deck that brings reflections from nature. And I wanted to do a quick recap of our premiere video two sessions ago for tuning inward, voicing our needs and boundaries. I was participating in the activity with all of you, for those of you that tuned in, or for those of you that are just learning about it. We were creating a wheel that was divided in our spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental areas of our life, observing how we voice our needs and boundaries, the light and the shadow of that. And it's been a really profound journey to observe myself, the ways that I am able to advocate and struggle to advocate for my body, for my physical time, for my energy, for my spiritual space, for my emotional capacity, and for my cognitive space, for my mental space. And these are all areas of life that we are constantly balancing. This wheel is from many different indigenous practices. There's medicine wheels from every culture in different ways. It's not necessarily called a medicine wheel, but this circle of life and drawing lines in between and making observations about the world around us and within us is a tool that has been used for centuries, for millennia. And I'm really feeling the connectivity that is downloaded from just having self-awareness around what I need to work on and what are areas that I have worked on and that I'm proud of, because this isn't easy work. We are in a world that doesn't consent, that uses non-consent as a form of violence and control. And we are meeting that with a culture of care, with a culture of consideration, with a culture of consciousness that is meant to heal, that is meant to ask permission before we act, so that we are in alignment. And I really believe in this tool and practice and just this way of framing the world as bringing us closer to peace, to non-war, to non-violence. And I hope that it serves you as much as it's serving me, and I would love to keep chatting about what comes up for y'all, one-on-one, or also just posting it on social media. The video from 2 weeks ago is still on Gratitude Blooming's page, and you can find it there in the same area where you'll find this video. And so today we're going to be talking about tuning inward to our inner child. And I'm really grateful to be able to share this knowledge, because I went to school for human development and family studies, and in that field, I was able to look at childhood, adolescent development, look at relationships, and learn from them, from intercultural relationships to many different forms of families. And I feel this area of life is something that we kind of take for granted, because we're just always in the motion. We are born into this body and we don't necessarily choose who are the families that we're born into, the world that we're born into. We don't choose necessarily who we work with or go to school with or even drive in traffic with. There's a lot about this world that we're just kind of on autopilot around. And for me, an area of life that really stood out, that I wanted to pay attention to, that I wanted to study, that I wanted to show love and honor and pay homage to, was family. And within that, and that's beyond time, family as it grows from a young seedling family to a multi-generational family. And it's just really, it feels really rewarding to be able to talk to people about this. I didn't realize it's something that my inner child needed, was to share more about this experience. And how I think about inner child is that it is the spirit and energy that is carried in our bodies through the rest of our lives. It is a spirit that is bound to our physical experience right now, in this particular life. If you believe in many lives, I'm saying that the inner child is tied to this specific being and body. Even when we are remembering things from past lives, the inner child energy is very much tied to the physical and visceral experience of this current life and your path in this moment. So I just wanted to share that. That's how I see inner child, and I really don't believe that there is a spiritual difference across ages, that our spiritual magnitude is the same regardless of how long we live and how old we are. I really believe that age in a lot of ways is irrelevant, that each person deserves a voice throughout their life, at any age, at every age. And I really want to shift the way we compartmentalize this idea and these constructs of baby, child, adolescent, teen, adult, elder. I feel we all need to remove some hierarchy around the way we think about that. And I feel that it will alleviate and liberate us from, I was trying to merge that, alleviate and liberate us from a lot of pressure and tension and just boxes that we place ourselves in. Sometimes we make our own prisons in our minds, and that brings me to my next experience that reaffirms this thought, and that was working in juvenile justice as a paralegal, as a legal assistant. I was working with attorneys that were fighting against juvenile life without parole. And juvenile life without parole means young people can commit crimes, and by the time they're 21, they don't have the ability to receive parole at all, or in their entire life. If they have a life sentence, they just get transferred from, when they turn 21 or 18, they get transferred from the child prison to the adult prison. And first and foremost, working in this field made me truly believe that we do not need prisons or jails or punitive systems to deal with people's challenges in life. And it also taught me that there is really, again, no essential difference between children and adults. I really struggled with the fact that we were justifying that these young people deserve to not be in prison, when I believe the same thing for adults, because a lot of times what the child's self goes through naturally impacts how they progress as an adult. And for some people in this world, they really don't get a chance to be a child. They really don't get any breaks, and they continue going through these punitive systems and cycles of violence and into their adulthood, to the point where they are imprisoned in a facility that is privately or publicly funded, and we just dispose of them. And so this is really critical, that we understand that we are beyond age and we are beyond time, and that we can honor our past, present, and future selves, but we really need to give this present self a chance. And so this is why I believe this work is important. Right now, I may have mentioned before that that planet Mars is in retrograde in the sign of Aries, and Aries is a sign that is very playful and has a strong child-like innocence and love. And so this is another reason why I chose this topic for this month. We are going into the fall season. We've harvested, we've had an abundance. There's been challenges, especially in this year, but we are going into the fall season of this pandemic year of 2020. And it is critical for us to continue to do work that will be good for our spirit, that will be good for our whole selves. And sometimes when we are compartmentalized in these boxes and stereotypes of who we think we are really creating another prison within ourselves around our identity. And it really brings to light the importance of honoring transitions, honoring the transitions between seasons. We're going to go into fall, and it's a time for reflection and doing inner work, especially for places that are for seasons. There's just a lot less outward expression and a lot more internal reflection, or there should be. It's kind of challenging in this current capitalist time where you're kind of pushed to produce all year round. And but this is another way that we, as the people, and through our small daily acts of kindness and consciousness and awareness, can dial back in our practice and be the example of what we believe the world can be. And that comes from integrating ourselves between seasons, and integrating ourselves between life transitions. And if you notice and take note of how your life transitions have been, from baby to child to adolescent to preteen, teen to young adulthood, middle adulthood, and then to elder. And there may have been situations out of your control that made these life transitions really challenging. In this present moment, because you are here witnessing this video, you do have agency. And at every present moment gives you agency to shift. Yes, there are systemic factors around us that are controlling a lot of things. But it is so important that we continue to assert and believe in our agency in the moment. That every moment that we have is an opportunity to shift. And this opportunity that I'm presenting to us is the opportunity to honor each transition of season and of age within yourself. This is going to require a lot of internal reflection. And I know that it's not just one technique of like drawing a wheel or journaling. Everybody's technique is going to look different. As we observe and take account of our past selves, ourselves as it is shifting through ages, ourselves as it's shifting through seasons and time, we can use whatever tools available to us. Some of us are more visual, and maybe photography is your field. Maybe you're more technical, more scientific. There are ways that we can integrate this consciousness into whatever field that you are in, and I'm really about making this accessible to yourself, making this knowledge useful and relevant and present for you in the ways that you need. And so whatever way that you can take a moment to observe your life, to honor it through ritual, to honor the challenging transitions that you may have gone through, you honor your current self and you build a better relationship to all those past selves. And particularly with the inner child, as we know in this world that uses non-consent for control and violence, there's a lot of times where children are just silenced, especially in recent history. It has been shifting a little bit, but for the majority of the lifetimes we've lived so far, there has been a shift of the way that we treat. There's constant shifts of the way we treat children, but especially in the last few hundred years, I could go, I can speak on lectures and lectures of how relationships to children and the way we think of children has changed. But for the sake of time, since we only got 30 minutes, I'm just going to say that in this world of non-consent with inner children, we might still be fighting the battles that we've had in our childhood because we never got over the way we were treated when we were young. And if you were never given the opportunity, and you never took you just didn't have the chance or the resources or didn't take the chance or resources to observe these selves and these voices, it will build up. It may build up and come out in a certain way. And so what I hope to bring is just more prevention in the world, prevention from the explosions that we have internally and externally. And yeah, your inner child is a voice that wants to be heard, that wants to be honored, but also has its own shadows, of course, that it's carrying from the past. And before we get into how we can, address some activities or practices that can support us in working more deeply with our inner child, I'm just going to take a moment to pull a gratitude card and to ask it to guide us, to guide this next half of our conversation. Check it out if you haven't seen it already. The card we received is Patience. Patience, number 37, Chamomile. Chamomile is a beautiful herb, great for your lungs. It is amazing for if you are struggling to sleep, if you're feeling anxious. Chamomile is a really good companion for calm and very appropriate for patience. The reflection for this card says, some of the most important lessons in life require space and time to grow. How can time be your teacher? So in our practices with our inner child, it absolutely is going to take time, especially if you haven't had this conversation with yourself before, if you're not seeking professional support or are not able to receive emotional guidance from your friends or family. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of different tools for you, specifically you and whatever body, culture, environment that you lived in order to heal. And a lot of things that represent our past can also be the tools that support us in our present and future. And I know that's kind of vague, and I want to go into detail, but I feel like I should just leave it general for every person to interpret it as they will. Looking at what are your family and cultural and regional and local practices that you've been raised with. What are the things and habits and foods and desires and memories that you have grown up with along with your inner child? And also, how are you going to take time? Sometimes it is deep reflection, going into nature. Sometimes it's really making time, putting it in your calendar, of scheduling time. I'm going to work on my inner child. I'm going to work on my self-advocacy, voicing my needs and boundaries. These are not just going to fall in our laps. Like, it's important for us to meditate on it. It's important for us to journal on it. But it is really, multi-level aspects of working through and building a relationship and bond with all of ourselves. And we have to be patient for that. We need plant allies. We need nature allies. I do feel that a lot of times when we do work like this, where we're healing past self, observing our origins and our experiences, this is sacred work. This is shamanic work. Even if you're not a shaman, you are doing transformational, spiritual, life-changing work when you decide and when you are given the opportunity to take time for yourself, to know yourself, to give yourself the chance to change, to grow, to love yourself even more. And one of the things that we need to do to honor our inner child is not only just acknowledge it, but to release it, to know that all of us have a sense of the child. There, our tantrums, the ways that we outlash on people, a lot of times those tendencies and those experiences and patterns came from our childhood because we felt like we needed to act like that to receive attention and to receive some kind of love or shift, or meeting certain desires, whether they were needs or not. And so releasing our inner child through conversation, through even having tea with your inner child. We had a moment with our anger last week, and a lot of folks had never spent time to address their anger. There are so many different aspects of ourselves that we can really make time for. Even though, yes, we are in a capitalistic society that takes up a lot of our time, and people are feeling, immersed in this go, go, go mentality and practice. If you seek it, it is available to you. That's the world that we've created. This is the world that we have manifested, is that we are making things available to ourselves just by the matter of our manifestation in our minds. And that's really the inner magic we each hold. And so I really believe that the more we develop a relationship with all our different selves, whatever that means to you, however that looks, whatever time it takes, that we are really building a more just and sustainable world. We are lifting the veils of shadows, excuses, stories of our past in order to be present and create new patterns, new stories, new beliefs that will help and liberate ourselves, and stop creating demons of ourselves, our past selves, our present selves, our future selves, and of others. It requires us being real, and to vocalize not only our needs, our boundaries, but vocalize who we really are in the moment. And sometimes that is the hardest part, is really accepting who you are in the now, and really being real about that, and not blaming other people, knowing where these origins and patterns may have developed, but taking accountability for where that is now so that we can move it. This whole conversation is just a temperature check, and tuning inward for us to listen to what's coming up, and what are we going to work on this fall and this winter. We're going to go inward. We're going to have time to ourselves. It's going to be cold. It might be wet. It might be snowy for you. Instead of evading some of these challenges in our life, filling it with social media or other easily gratifying acts, I offer this opportunity to make a sacred ritual for yourself. Whether it's tuning inwards to voice your boundaries and needs, meeting your anger where it's at and expression where it's at, listening to your inner child, I really just want to offer a moment of gratitude for this present time to change. We are really building a relationship with ourselves in a way we haven't before. And that is such a privilege, because that's what our ancestors have sacrificed. All this trauma that we carry from our ancestors, that we are slowly unpacking, letting go, shifting, transmuting, that was all the foundations that they were forced or participated in for us to be here, to be able to unpack all the things that it took to get to this moment and move further into the future in deep spiritual alignment with ourselves and with our ancestors, with the world around us. That, I'm so grateful for that, and I'm so grateful that you are here. I'm so grateful that Gratitude Blooming gave me this platform and opportunity to discuss the many different selves within ourselves. And that's not to justify any harm or abuse that we have caused in our knowing and unknowing, but that's just to take a real honest look and a real genuine moment to care, to give care and awareness and time to this being here. This being, you know, so many people in this planet contributed to my being here. So many people in this planet contribute to my well-being, to the food that I eat, to the gasoline that I use to drive my car, to every fiber that I'm wearing, that I'm made of, is the offering of someone else. It's part of someone else's contribution. And I really feel strongly that we are worth it. You know, we are worth all these sacrifices and challenges, and it's worth it to unpack some of the things that are blocking us, and some of the pain that we're still holding on to from our past, especially in our childhood, especially in the times that we may not have felt like we could advocate for ourselves, in the times that we felt we needed to behave a certain way to receive love. And because you are here now, you have a moment to give yourself the love that you believe you deserve. And that's something coming from a wisdom beyond time. You know, that's a wisdom beyond adulthood, childhood, race, gender. Your inner child deserves to be heard. Your inner child is real, and it wants to build a relationship with you, as does all of our emotions, as does all the beings that are coming up in our life. And it is a matter of our consent to decide, yes, I'm ready to do that work. Yes, I'm ready to build a relationship with you. Yes, I have capacity to make time for a conversation. And it's up to you. Whenever the time feels right to make space for yourself, who is your one friend that's going to live with you throughout your life is you. And that's a real bond. It's a bond that we shouldn't take for granted. It's a bond that we will constantly work at. As much as we work on our relationships with others, as much as we work on developing skills for work and for, you know, building relationship with this land and the people we love. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We have one more tuning inward session next Wednesday, September 30th, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific time. It's going to be a Reiki and sound journey supporting us in transitioning seasons. I'm very grateful for your presence, for the inner child and the outer being that is you. You're worth all the effort and work and time that it takes to heal, that it takes to connect, that it takes to build bridges. And I'm very honored to have had this conversation with you. I'm happy and grateful to connect through social media. My handle is Soultree Sounds, or Soultree Sha, SHHAA, for Soultree Holistic Healing Arts and Activations. And you can also find me on my website, soultreesounds.com. I am continuing to create and collaborate with community who are in divine alignment gratitude and blooming and nature and healing and justice that I've been on with all of you. So thank you for tuning in today. Much love to your tuning inward journey. Take care.